All right, let's dive into Latin American fintech. Looking at some recent articles and data about venture capital flowing into these LatAm startups. Remember all that worry about a funding dip?
Well, seems like things are looking up,
Yeah, yeah.
but is it a boom or something a little more complicated?
Hmm. Well, the numbers tell us a pretty interesting story. PitchBook data shows that funding volume. In LatAm fintech, it's already increased by a huge 73% in 2024 compared to all of last year.
Whoa, 73%.
That's
That's
like,
just not like a comeback. But like,
yeah.
what's the whole picture here? Is this a sign of something bigger or just like,
Yeah.
just a blip on the radar?
Right. So while it's a significant rebound, it's important to remember that we're still not at those 2021 highs
Hmm.
when the sector brought in $7.5 billion.
Yeah.
So this could suggest a more cautious optimism from investors, maybe waiting to see if this upward trend will continue before fully jumping back in. Okay, so not quite a full-blown boom just yet, but
Hmm.
definitely some positive momentum.
Hmm.
So what are some of the companies that are actually driving this resurgence?
We're seeing growth across a bunch of different areas in
Mm.
fintech, like expense management, remittances,
Mm.
and even AI. So for example,
Mhm.
there's Conta Simples. They're a Brazilian expense management platform, and they recently secured a Series B funding round, raising $41.5 million.
Mm.
And then there's Felix Pago. They're focused on remittances. They got $15.5 million.
So it's not just like one specific part of fintech that's heating up. Interesting. Any deals in particular that really stand out to you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. One that really caught my eye is it's this Brazilian AI fintech company, Maging. They got a $4 million investment from Lux Capital. And this is a big deal for a couple of reasons.
Oh.
So first, this is actually Lux Capital's first investment ever in
Mhm.
Brazil, which seems to show a growing confidence in the region.
Yep.
And second, Lux is known for backing these cutting-edge, disruptive tech companies. So
Yeah.
their investment in Maggie could be a sign that AI-driven fintech solutions are like about to make a big impact in Latin America.
It's almost like they're planting their flag
Yeah?
in the LatAm AI fintech world. I'm curious, what do you think is driving this resurgence? Why are investors starting to warm back up to LatAm fintech?
Well, Mike Packer. He's a partner at QED Investors. They focus specifically on fintech. And he suggests there are two main factors at work here. So first, a lot of the companies that rode that big 2021 funding wave, they're coming back now for their next round.
Okay. But is this, I mean, could there just be a case of those companies needing more cash
Yeah.
to stay afloat rather than a sign of actual growth?
Yeah, that's a good point. Definitely something to think about. But
Yeah.
Packer also mentions a second factor,
Mm.
which is, all these companies that have reached these big milestones and are ready to scale. These companies aren't just surviving, they're thriving,
Hmm.
and they're looking to expand. And this, I think this signals a more mature ecosystem where we can expect to see
More sophisticated.
and potentially more attractive investment opportunities.
It's like they've moved past that proof of concept phase.
Yeah.
And are ready to really hit the gas pedal. That makes sense. What kinds of companies do you think we'll see getting investment in this next wave?
Hmm. Hmm. Well, Nicholas Sekesi, he's the co-founder of Casfec Ventures. They're a major player in LatAm venture capital. He's noticed a pretty interesting shift. He says there's a move away from those just consumer-focused businesses toward those that are focused on building the infrastructure, the underlying infrastructure for the fintech ecosystem.
Okay, so instead of targeting individual consumers directly, these companies are kind of building the tools and services that other fintech companies can use. Can you explain why this is so important, this shift to infrastructure-focused fintech?
So imagine trying to build a skyscraper without a solid foundation. It wouldn't work. And it's the same with fintech. These infrastructure players are. They're setting the groundwork for a much more robust and sophisticated financial system by tackling things like payment processing, data security, and regulatory compliance. And this creates a much more fertile ground for innovation and other areas of
They're
fintech.
creating like the digital plumbing and wiring that
Yeah.
allows the whole financial system to work better. And I imagine this is also really attractive to investors
Yeah.
because it creates this ripple effect. The success of these infrastructure companies can help all these other fintech startups grow.
Exactly. By investing in these foundational elements, investors are essentially betting on the long-term growth and maturity of the entire LatAm fintech ecosystem. And this shift to infrastructure also shows that. While Latin America has made real progress in fintech adoption, it still lags behind,
Mhm.
places like the US and Europe in certain areas. And this gap is a big opportunity for innovative companies to step in and address those needs.
So there's still plenty of room for growth and disruption. We're seeing a rebound in funding, a diverse group of companies attracting investment, and this shift towards more of these infrastructure-focused ventures, all very promising signs. But let's be real, it can't all be good news. What are some of the challenges that LatAm Fintech is still facing?
Well, one of the biggest concerns with LatAm Fintech is the lack of major exits. Besides Nubank's IPO back in 2021,
Right. Nubank going public. That was a huge moment for LatAm Fintech, valued at $41 billion. But it seems like that hasn't really been replicated. Why is that a concern?
exits, whether it's IPOs or acquisitions, they're really important for a healthy venture capital ecosystem. They provide returns for investors, and they kind of validate these business models,
Yeah.
which then encourages even more investment. So this lack of exits, besides Nubank, it makes some investors hesitate. They might start to wonder if LatAm fintechs, can they really achieve that large-scale success and generate big returns?
So it's not even just about the money. A lack of exits could mean that the market isn't quite mature yet, which makes investors nervous. Are there other challenges that we should be thinking about?
Yeah. Another challenge is that there's this heavy reliance on local funding. Both Packer and Sekasi mentioned this. Most investments are still coming from either local or regional funds,
Yeah.
meaning that a lot of global investors, they're still kind of hesitant to get into the LatAm market.
Right. It seems like this limited global investment, it keeps coming up. Why do you think that is? Is it just that they think it's too risky? Or are there other things going on?
Probably a few things. Some global investors might see LatAm as too risky because of things like political and economic instability. Others, maybe they're just not even aware of the opportunities. And then some might be put off by the regulatory complexities or the fact that there isn't like a long history of successful exits.
It's almost like Susa. There's this incredible potential that's just waiting to be unlocked.
Yeah.
But these barriers are keeping global investors from really embracing the market.
Yeah. I like that analogy. I think it's important to remember, though, investing in emerging markets, there's always going to be some risk, but the rewards can be big for those who are willing to do their research and deal with those complexities.
You mentioned research. What advice would you give to someone who's thinking about investing in LatAm fintech? Where should they start?
Research is key. Definitely don't just go chasing the hype.
Right.
Dive deep into whatever sector you're interested in.
Yeah.
Understand the regulations, and really carefully evaluate those companies and their leaders.
So it's not just about throwing money at any random LatAm fintech startup. You got to be selective, strategic.
Exactly. Look for companies that are addressing real market needs with innovative solutions. Think about their competitive advantage, their growth potential, and the experience and vision of their leadership team.
And talk to local experts.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Talk to local experts. Go to industry events. Build those relationships with people who really understand the market.
Get that firsthand knowledge.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've talked about the opportunities and challenges, but I want to shift gears a little. I'm curious what you think about the bigger picture. Where do you see this sector going in the next 5-10 years?
I think we'll see continued growth and maturation
Right.
of the LatAm fintech ecosystem. We talked about some of the forces driving that, like the increasing adoption of technology, the large unbanked population, and all these innovative startups. I think we'll see more global investors coming into the market as they become more aware. And as these LatAm fintech companies keep showing their potential.
So the market matures, proves itself, and then the global investment follows.
Right.
Makes sense. What parts of LatAm fintech do you find especially exciting?
One area that really sticks out is financial inclusion. There's just a massive opportunity to use technology to reach the unbanked, the underbanked populations, and give them access to essential financial services, things like affordable credit, insurance, savings products.
Yeah. The potential impact on people's lives is huge. If we can use fintech to bring those services to people who've been excluded, are there other areas that you think will grow a lot?
I think we'll see fintech converging with other sectors like healthcare, education, agriculture. Imagine using fintech to streamline healthcare payments or personalize education financing, or even giving farmers better access to financial tools. These are just a few examples of how fintech can be a powerful force for positive change across different industries.
Fintech, like the connective tissue that can improve access and efficiency across different parts of society. But let's be realistic, there are always potential roadblocks. What could derail this growth?
You're right, it's not always going to be easy. Things like economic downturns, political instability, regulatory hurdles, those could all challenge LatAm fintech's growth. And then there are cybersecurity threats. Data privacy concerns, which are growing everywhere. And Latin America is no exception. Companies need to prioritize security and build trust with their users.
So alongside all the excitement and potential, there needs to be caution, vigilance. Companies and investors have to be ready for the unexpected, adapt to the changing landscape.
As we wrap up this part of our deep dives, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about.
Okay.
Imagine it's 10 years from now. You're looking back at the LatAm fintech scene. What do you see? Did it live up to its potential? What impact did it have on the region and its people? Okay, so we've talked about the rebound in funding, the move towards infrastructure and all the challenges. But I want to go back to something Mike Packer said about Latin America being underfunded. What do you think he meant by that, and why should we care?
Well, his statement's pretty bold, and I think it points to something really important. He believes that. The amount of investment in LatAm fintech right now, it just doesn't match the potential. It's like having a huge field ready for harvest, but not enough farmers to actually do the work.
Classic supply and demand problem. There's a big demand for these innovative financial solutions in LatAm, but the money just isn't keeping up. What does this underfunding actually mean? On one hand, it's a challenge for these LatAm fintech companies. Without enough capital, they might struggle to grow, to attract good people, and to compete on a global scale. It's like having this powerful engine, but not enough fuel.
So all this potential just sitting there, untapped. And that's a problem not just for the companies, but for the whole region's economy. But you said this also presents an opportunity.
Right, because for investors who are willing to take a chance, LatAm fintech is this chance to get in early on a really rapidly growing market, like finding a hidden gem before everyone else.
Right. The people who see that gap between the potential and the investment, they stand to gain the most. But as we said, investing in emerging markets is always risky. How should investors approach this?
They have to be really smart, strategic. Don't chase the hype. Research is everything. Really carefully evaluate the sector you're interested in, understand the regulations, and look closely at the companies and their leaders.
Be a detective. Look for the clues that point to long-term success. What specific qualities should investors look for?
Companies that are solving real problems. For a big market, their solutions have to be innovative, scalable. They need to have a clear advantage over the competition. And the leadership, they got to be experienced, passionate, with a good track record.
Find the companies that could become.
Like regional.
Yeah.
Or even global leaders. Okay, let's bring it back to our listeners.
Okay.
If you were an investor, what kind of LatAm fintech company would you be most excited to back?
That's the question, isn't it? I'd be interested in companies that are taking on big challenges, with solutions that are innovative and that have a real impact, like those focused on financial inclusion, empowering people who don't have access to traditional banking, or companies using AI and data to make financial services more efficient and accessible, or even those companies that are building that essential infrastructure that the whole ecosystem needs.
So many possibilities, each with their own potential. It's about finding those hidden gems.
LatAm fintech is changing all the time. There are opportunities out there for those who are willing to put in the work and really embrace that potential. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into Latin American fintech. We talked about the market rebounding, the shift towards infrastructure, and the challenges that lie ahead. We also highlighted just how much potential this sector has to make a real difference in the region and beyond. Now it's your turn. What sparked your interest? What insights are you going to take with you? And most importantly, if you were an investor, what kind of LatAm fintech company would you support and why? Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep again.